So this is me, Oliver Heslop. This is my firm, Gets, but I partner with a guy called Peter Farino. I'm based in London. He's based down in Spain, in Mallorca. And we've both got about 30 plus years experience in tax. We're both tax accountants. So that's us. And you can email me direct if you want to. Anybody, we still take all direct contacts to us to help sort of diagnose your problems. So what do we do? What do we actually do? So we look after British people anywhere in the world. So that would be, off the top of my head, America, Europe, Asia, Australia, you name it. We look after their tax and social security, because social security does still carry on as well as tax when you go abroad. So that's anybody overseas. And the countries that I haven't done yet, there aren't many left. I haven't done Iraq. I've done Iran. I've done Afghanistan. I've done Papua New Guinea. So Brits are everywhere. And the next slide is just leapt in, and that's just saying that we do people coming the other way. So I'm doing foreign nationals coming to the UK from any country, and we're doing their tax and social security. So my talk today will be about both sides of the coin, people leaving the UK and people coming. So today I was going to do a sort of pub quiz, tax quiz for you all today, and you could send your comments into me, but I don't really believe in bullying audiences like that. So what I thought I'd do, I've got quite a lot of questions, which I'm going to fire out the questions and then I'll give you the answers. And it's for you to jot down your ideas really. And if you want to give me your comments or ideas to the questions, then great, and we'll discuss them. And if you don't, no problem, I'll just deliver the work and the answers on them. So if we go down one more slide, move down a slide. Right, so this is people leaving the UK, and the first question would be, if you are leaving the UK to work or to live, would you notify HMRC? Would you need to? I'll keep my eye on the comments. But yes, so the answer to that would be you don't have to. You don't have to tell HMRC that you're leaving the UK. However, it's a very good idea to. It's like the lawyer 100 years ago who said you don't have to wear a seatbelt, but it's a very good idea to do so to protect your risk. And that's exactly right here. There's an exit form called a P85, which you'd fill out and you tell HMRC where you're going, how long you're going for, etc. It's a really good idea to do that because it helps them track you. So the next question is, are you going to be non-resident after you leave? Well, I want you to be non-resident. That's what I'm aiming for you to be tax non-resident from when you leave. But sometimes it's not possible. You might have too strong a tie to the UK. I'm thinking you might come back too often. You might have a home here. You might have family here. Those sorts of things. They could keep you resident, but we're looking to make you tax non-resident. That's my aim. This is particularly good for Brits going to the Middle East. That's what you want. Non-resident in the UK. Residence in your host location where there's no tax or very low tax. So the last question is, what's the benefit of tax non-residence? Well, I'm going to keep that simple. There's quite a lot to that, but simply we're saying I want you to pay 0% tax on your employment income, which is amazing really, isn't it? So that's what we're trying to achieve. And if we didn't achieve that, we'd be taxable in two places and we'll have a bit more of a mess to sort out. We can certainly fix it, but going non-resident is great. That's the key. So that's that slide dealt with. So moving on to the next slide. Right, so next questions I've got in are just about a few quiz questions, and they're really designed for sometimes people who don't have much familiarity with the UK yet. How many days do you think you're allowed back in the UK when you're going non-resident? Well, the answer on that one is, the good rule of thumb is, well, there's no answer, frankly, but 90 days is a good start. Sometimes it's 46, but it's never 183. That's why I put the question in there. People think that to be resident again, it's a 183-day test. It just isn't for tax. So let's start with 90 and work from there. You've got to record those days as well. Keep records of boarding passes and put it in your diary, but keep 90 in your head, please. What's the UK tax year end? I always put that in mainly for Americans because it's a 5th of April tax year end, which you won't be used to. So yes, we have a very different Julian calendar year end, so that's why it's there. Okay, great. So can you be taxed in two countries at once? Yes, you very much can. That was the example I used before. Let's say you're a Brit going to Germany, France, the States, and you haven't gone away for long enough. So you could be taxed at home in the UK and taxed in the other country. Very common. And if you do that, we have to unmuddle that with tax credits and the like. We don't want you to be double taxed. So that's what we're doing there. It comes up a lot, actually. Okay, that's great. So next slide. The reason he's smiling, that guy, is because you can often get a refund in your year of departure. on your tax return. So that's a very good thing to do. So what's the UK tax return deadline for filing in the UK? Well, it's 31 January after tax year end. So that's 10 months. Yes, that's 10 months after tax year end. Very different to other countries. And there's no extensions on that date. Some of you might be used to, I know American nationals are used to extending tax returns. We cannot. It is 31 January hard deadline. So that's something to think about. And I'm going to drop to the bottom question there. What's the penalty for not filing on time in the UK? Well, it can be massive. A lot of you'll say £100, which it is for missing 31 January, but then it escalates and it grows from there. So it can go up to about £1,200 within the year. Question from the floor, will it change if Labour get in? I don't think Labour have the time to change filing deadlines and penalties for tax. They may try and change penalties, actually, you're quite right, because Labour has said they won't change income tax and national insurance. So they are going to have to change something. And I think they're going to change capital gains tax, for example. They will have to do something to increase their budget because they need to spend on more things. So, yeah, we are really up in the air at the moment. Labour are making lots of promises, which I admire them for, but there's only a certain amount of time to get all these things factored in and rolled out as new legislation. So if you're living abroad, I'm doing the middle question now on this page. Have you got to file tax returns when you're abroad? Well, basically, yes. If you come to me, you're most likely to have rental income or investment income in the UK. That's called UK source. So it's still taxable. So we've got to still file tax returns and report that. So that's a yes to tax returns. Even though you've gone abroad and you're in the Middle East, you think you're home free, you are still filing in the UK, I'm afraid. So that's that slide dealt with. Thank you. Right, I just chucked in a few general ones here. I'm going to answer the first one for you. So what are the UK rents? How are they taxable in the UK? Well, you basically take total revenue that comes in, total gross rents, and from that you take off expenses. So you can really get the taxable rents down to a small level. You take off repairs, maintenance, there's a deduction for mortgage relief, legal fees, accountancy fees. It's a long list, but if you've got rental income in the UK, let's definitely have a chat, because it might not be as daunting as you think and the tax might not be as high. So great. Do you pay NIC when you're abroad? Potentially, yes. You perhaps don't have to, but you've got to remember the voluntary NIC system that exists. It's quite a lot to go into now, but all I'm saying is there's a chance to top up your state pension while you're abroad. It's a very low cost way to do so, and the benefit is very high. So that's a really good thing to do. Look into that, have a Google or speak to me. It's a really worthwhile thing to do. The last one is, what is a double tax treaty? And I've touched on this a bit before. And what we're saying is that's where you're taxable in two places at once. And we, the UK, have agreements with many other countries. Because of the empire, basically, we've got a tax agreement with most countries on the planet. And then we have deals which prevent people getting doubly taxed. So they are a definite good Bible for me in my job to stop people getting caught. So that's great, really. It's a really useful tool. I think we're moving on to coming to the UK now, the next slide. Right, so we're switching it round now. So I'm speaking to you, Americans, Australians, Europeans, plenty of Asian clients we have as well, coming from India and Pakistan, moving to live here. And the question is, first one is, when does the 45% tax rate start? Now that is not supposed to change. I've had a question in from Stacey in a second, which I'll deal with. That's not supposed to change. The new Labour government, if they get in, would not change that rate, and the current government would keep the rate at 45%. It starts at £125,000, which is quite low looking at the rest of the planet. That tax rate is kicking in quite low. It used to be 150. Right, I'm going to go to a question from the board. My 401k is on an IRA in the US, and I'm nearly aging 50. And I have UK and Italian citizenship. How do I minimise the tax to save my money in the UK? Stacey, I'm very happy to answer that question if we can do it offline. If you can send me an email on that, we'll have a quick chat. I won't charge you, of course. And we'll just have a general chat about 401ks and IRAs. There's a special rule about rolling over IRAs into 401ks and when they're taxable and when they are not. So we can have a chat about that, certainly. I'd love to do that. My email was at the start and it's at the end of the presentation as well. So I won't be coming to that quite soon. So thank you, Stacey. That's great. So is there is there any expat tax release for people coming to the UK? The answer to that is hell yes. There are loads of them. So it's a really good, at the moment, there are plenty of incentives for people to come to the UK. Now, I am seeing both the shadow government and the government attacking these. I won't go too much more into that, but yes, there are. And we'll go to the next slide, please. Right, there's quite a lot to this slide. And it's just a bit of a list, so I don't want to bore you too much by just running through the list. But what we're saying is accommodation can be tax-free in the UK for the first 2 years. Now that's a mega relief, and I'll show you how that works in a minute. So all of your accommodation, rent tax-free for 2 years would be an incredible saving. I'll jump to relocation, and that's really an either or. You can have the relocation or the accommodation, not both. That is for people who are relocating here and becoming local hires. So it's different to what I was just talking about for accommodation. And there's £8,000 tax relief on that. So yeah, definitely worth looking at. And my favourite, last of all, is foreign employment gains down towards the bottom. Sorry, foreign employment income. And that is where I can get you tax relief on overseas work days. And it's very lucrative as well. So if you look at the next slide, you'll see some of the numbers and the cash back. I mean, just look at those savings. For accommodation in the first year, you can save £12,000. I used a rent of £30,000 per annum, which is not unrealistic in the UK. So in London, the London area, so that would be potentially £12,000 tax rebate in the first year. Non-UK work days, equally huge. I picked a salary of 150. Now, I know that's pretty high, and you might just think that I'm joking about that, but I picked that for people working in central London, possibly doing financial, banking, crypto type jobs, and there are plenty of people doing that, IT, who are on that sort of salary. So we do get those savings in the first 3 tax years. Subsistence is another one, another very nice, healthy tax rebate. So I just wanted to show you that it's not just a list of possible reliefs. The rebate or the back payment is huge on those things. So that is that slide. Right, totally different area of tax relief now. I'm talking about non-domiciles. Why am I talking about that? Well, Rishi Sunak has been in trouble, and he's not the only one. There's plenty of MPs on both sides who've been in trouble over the non-dom rules. And those are people who are born abroad and they're keeping their income and their gains outside of UK tax. So that's what's happening here. It still exists as a tax relief. It exists for the first 7 years. It might be reformed, but it won't disappear. So I've got 2 examples here of how somebody can be non-dom or not non-dom, and then just remember that person's coming here, they're being taxed on income, and they're excluding everything abroad. I mean, what a relief that is. So you can see why it's so popular and why people are trying to attack it and reduce it. So I've got somebody, I'll come back to, I've just had a question in, which we'll deal with in a second. I was born in Texas in 1972, but then I lived in the UK for 30 years, and then I moved back to the US for 20. So what am I? Am I a UK dom because I've spent so much time there? Well, the answer is no. That person, even though they spent 30 years in the UK, could still be a non-dom, which is what upsets people a bit, I think. That person can have extra tax release because they were born in Texas, and they can say their spiritual home is the USA, and therefore they're a non-dom, and they want to claim those reliefs. So yes, so it is a wide tax relief at the moment. So the next one I've got is going the other way, something else to think about. Let's imagine it's me, born in 1980. So I was born in 1980 and I left the UK when I was 2. So I've never been in the UK really. Am I a dom? Well, yes, you are going to be a dom because your spiritual home is still where you were born, and you would have to refute that claim. So you would potentially, if you come back here, be treated as a domicile and taxable on worldwide income. Just see how unfair that really is compared to the Texas person who spent 20, 30 years here. So that's how the system works at the moment. So great, that's non-dom. It's a real hot topic. That is what they're talking about in the press whenever they talk about it and discussing reforming it. Okay, great. So that's the end of that slide. Right, so my last little questions, they were just quick pop quiz questions really for you all. And it's great to have a chat about them because they will come up. If you're coming to the UK, these phrases would come up in your taxation when you first come here. So the first one is going to be, what's a split year? Well, that's a great relief. That means you basically turn up during a year, September, and you would look to exclude all of your income for tax before that date. And that's amazing. I know that Spain doesn't do that. So Spain would, if you arrive in a tax year, you'll be taxed for the whole year in Spain. So that's a really nice, generous tax relief, which people take advantage of all the time. There's quite a few rules that underpin it, but yes, excluding income from before you arrive or excluding income after you go is very popular. So what is PAYE? So that is pay as you earn. That is the HMRC, sorry, that's the tax authority's system for collecting tax through payroll. That's all that means, but you will hear that phrase quite a bit. What is gift aid? That's when people make contributions to charity through their payroll and they get automatic tax relief. So that's just a mechanism, really. It's no biggie, that one. The last one is a tax code. Now, you'll all get a tax code, and that determines how much tax relief you get through payroll. I probably need to give you an example of what a tax code is, but I won't do that at the moment, just to say that that phrase will come up, and it'll affect your PAYE, and it'll affect your reliefs. So it's really quite, if your PAYE code goes wrong, your take-home pay goes wrong. So it's really important to get that right. So that was the end of that little quiz. I can't see it translating to a pub format, but I did my best. And then we'll just go to the final slide. I'm just getting a question through now, which is an American saying to me, if I'm American living in the UK, can I bring my savings to the UK? Well, I would suggest that you don't do it. Well, yes, I would say don't bring your savings in, which you saved after you came to the UK. We're into the non-domicile rules there. And you can exclude income if you don't bring it in. There's a bit more to that, but that's the simple test. Don't bring it into the UK initially and chat to an advisor about it. Somebody else was just asking me about calling the HMRC, calling the tax authorities, and it being a nightmare to get through. And yes, I'm afraid it is a nightmare, and there is no way around that. And when I ring them, I just put the phone next to me and let it dial for half an hour or so, because they are very competent when you get through, but they're short of people, and there's no way around the wait, I'm afraid. There is talk of any new government putting more money into HMRC, and I hope that either side does that, because at the moment they're short of resources. So great.
Oliver, I think that's the end of the slides and presentation, and thank you very much. Really interesting, and it's a really nice way of doing it, asking the questions and answering, because those are the questions I think a lot of people have. There are more questions coming in. Should we keep going?
Is that okay? Yeah, I'm happy to do some more.
Fantastic. So somebody asked, what are the most common tax mistakes expats make when moving to a new country?
I think the thing you do is you imagine it's the same tax year, which it isn't, because the UK is that 5th of April thing, that, you know, that quirk that nobody seems to have. And I think you imagine you get the same reliefs. I won't go into massive detail, but if you're an American, you're used to mortgage relief and you think your tax is going to go down for that. And, you know, just lots of things. Every system is totally different. So, you know, you need to meet somebody, really. It doesn't have to be me, but you should take half an hour with somebody to walk through the basics.
Somebody says, I think it probably applies more to expats who move to the UK, that they can't get through to HMRC when they call. Any advice?
Yeah, I was just saying that they don't really pick up the phone, and there's no answer to that. But what you might find this ridiculous, but I have been writing to my MP on this. So, and that works. That's your backup. If you're not getting any response from HMRC for whatever reason, I do write a little 2-line letter to the MP and say, can you prioritise my case? And it actually works, would you believe? I know that sounds ridiculous, but it is desperate times at the moment with HMRC.
So somebody says, if I'm an expat living in the Middle East, can I send money back to the UK? I assume that means whether it then becomes taxable in the UK if you're a non-UK resident.
Yes, you can. Is the answer to that. It's not. That's the simple answer. I tell people to put it in a separate bank account so it looks separate. It's ring-fenced. But yes, you can do that.
And you don't then pay UK tax when you send
it back?
People
always worry about that. And if it's Saudi earnings, or sorry, Middle Eastern earnings, then no, it's tax-free.
If I'm an American living in the UK, can I bring my US savings into the UK? Would they become taxable in that
I think
scenario?
that's a no. We'd say, to keep it simple, it's a no. You can bring in historic savings, but it gets muddled. So the best answer is no, and speak to somebody. Then you can structure your bank accounts and you can get around it. But the first pass has to be, don't do anything until you talk to somebody.
So this question just come up on the screen. Can you provide strategies for expats to minimize their tax liabilities legally? It's a very general,
Yes,
wide-ranging question, I imagine.
absolutely. We always do that. That's the little mini projects we get all the time. They'll say, I'm coming in tomorrow for 2 years. Can you help me? And we just go through everything. We do a health check to look at what they're earning and how long they want to be there and about their families. And then we sit down and we provide a list of minimization techniques they're all within ICTA, the ICTA or IT for the tax return, the tax legislation.
And I suppose, depending what country you're coming from, or if you have income in other countries, so the UK has tax treaties. You touched on this in your presentation with lots of other countries. And do the details vary so that there are different kind of benefits depending which other country you're dealing with?
Yes, absolutely, they do. The treaties are different. They are different depending on the age of the treaty and other things. They are very much different. The UK and the US are quite cozy, and they've produced a very tax-friendly treaty between them. But other countries are harsher and treaties are shorter, so they are different.
People often ask, I think I may need to file a UK tax return. What do I do?
Yes.
Again, that's quite general, but in the case, for example, a Brit who's moved abroad and they're not sure, what should they do?
They should probably speak to us, really. And again, I don't charge for that chat, and we'll just diagnose whether they do or not. But if you were going abroad and you had rents or bank interest or that sort of thing, yes, you would file. If you're coming here and you're going to be claiming tax relief, so yes, you would file. So generally, with an expat, the answer is yes. It's often to the advantage of the expat as well.
What if you're, for example, if you're British, you move abroad, but you're still working for a British company and being paid in the UK, but you're not living in the UK? Do you have UK tax liabilities in that scenario?
If you shouldn't do, no. If you've broken residence for tax, you should be tax-free on that. You might be subject to PAYE and then have to claim it back. But yes, you could be paid on a UK payroll and be non-resident, definitely.
Somebody else, are you taking on new clients?
The answer is absolutely we are. Yes, I'm here to chat for the session. We can go by email. Mauritius, I've done Mauritius. If somebody is asking about a potential move to Mauritius, and we've done Mauritius before, so we've got contacts there, so we can definitely help with that.
Yeah, so you can get in touch if anyone's interested. You can get in touch with Oliver via the expatfocus.com. There's a services tab in the top navigation. Just look under there and you can reach Oliver that way. Let's just see if we've got a couple of minutes left. So I think you may have covered this. Somebody said, have either of the political parties in the UK said what they'll do with non-dom rules if they win the upcoming election? Are we expecting changes?
Yes. I think the big thing to talk about with non-doms is it's normally about the first 7 years that you get that relief at a cheap rate, not free. There would be a charge, but then the Conservative Party said they would change it to 4 years, which is one of the shortest periods in Europe. That seemed to be one of the meanest. But yes, that's what the big plan was, and then they dropped that because the Tory government have run out of time. But Labour is talking about doing something similar, and they need to fill a gap in their spending. So I think Labour will do it if they were to get in.
So either way, there's likely to be that change. You're sort of shortening the time.
Yes, 4 years, and yes, and even tighter on some people who've already been here. So it's going to greatly restrict.
So if somebody's moving abroad, still has some income in the UK, such as rents, are there any strategies you can outline briefly how they can minimize UK tax liability if they have UK tax liability?
Yes, what we do on that is we do a little health check on their rental property. We make a long list of all the expenses we can deduct, and there are quite a few. So sit down in the repairs, maintenance, gardening, cleaner, we do all of that. And it sounds a little bit tedious, but it really gets your taxes down. So it's worth doing.
Fantastic. And expats moving to the UK, you already covered, which is that scenario where you have to sit down and go through their situation. But you mentioned you offer that consultation without charging.
That's right. Yes, we just talk to people definitely when we have them. Definitely.
Fantastic. Well, sorry.
I was going to say, I think that's it really. Apart from war stories about people who aren't paying tax at all who come to me, I don't think we can talk about much else. People do approach me saying, I want to hide this money here or there. And of course, we just can't even go there. But it is a natural question. People say, well, they don't need to know about the Spanish villa, do they? And we just have to say that we have to know about everything, I'm afraid. That's the kind of firm we are. Most practitioners are like that in the market. It's got to be totally bona fide.
Isn't it the case that most countries sort of exchange that information now anyway? So
yeah, actually, even the Swiss banks, because there used to be that big Privacy Act, didn't they? But they now volunteer Swiss banking interest. They send it to the UK. So the world has changed,
Oliver, thank you very much. I'm going to drop you out. And
thank you, Hugo.
Thank you.